Final Stop Brazil, Book 2, Life After Hell, Chapter 61, The Horror Bus Station of Säo Paulo. The first night in the coach was over. For sensitive people, this is certainly nothing. In particular, the use of toilets in the bus is not safe while in motion, and I learned to appreciate the benefits of my far too large pants. Instead of opening buttons or zippers and close them again, I needed only to pull them back up with one hand, while with the other I could protect myself against the itinerant spin in the cabin. Nevertheless, it was painful when I trapped my arm in the door, when it was already outside while the rest of my body was thrown back into the toilet, and the door slammed with my right arm in it. But I was relaxed and held since ages for the first time a book in my hands to read, instead of writing one. As much rest as on this weekend I would probably not have any more in the future. Instead, I would have to fight hard for the responsibility I had taken for Rita and Rafael. I could not disappoint them. My head was full of plans and hopes for my new life. Last but not least, on the side of Moraes, the man who apparently accepted me how I was. I still had the feeling to have someone by my side to strengthen my back, a shoulder to lean on. Above all, I didn't want one thing anymore: farewells. It was enough. How many times I had to leave people behind that I loved and that meant a lot to me. No more. I would go back to Salvador, yes. I would always keep in touch with the best mom in the world, and with my irmãozinho, with Liege, G, Leonidora, Pirata, and with my filhos, Rita and Rafael anyway. Again my thoughts went back to the day I left, and Italva, despite fever and pain, came again with Angela to say goodbye. That was typically my mom. She would have never just let me go like this, and made it even harder when she began to cry. Afterwards I had waited for Benet, my driver, who would bring me and my luggage to the Rodoviaria bus station for long-distance coaches, and waited again an endless time. Why only were Bahian men late all the time? For the thousandth time I had to listen to Rita. You're in Bahia. You have to be learning to be patient in Bahia. After quite some delay he arrived. We carried bags, boxes, and tied my TV in the van. Then off we went, but not for long. Congestion on all roads. No wonder it was the beginning of a long weekend. Oh, my nerves. But I tried to remain calm, at least outwardly. Before the Rodoviaria, the traffic was jammed also, but we made it at least up to the entrance, where Benet dropped me with my luggage to find a parking space. Quickly I ran off to find a baggage card, but noted that one was not enough for all my stuff. So I stood on the roadside with luggage on the cart and next to it, waiting for Benet. He finally came back and asked me in amazement, "Haven't you looked for a second card yet?" My jaw dropped. How am I supposed to do that with my stuff lying around here? Well, I could have done so, but then I probably would have needed no more card at all. You jerk. So Benet ran off, but came back without a second card. There aren't any more. We then performed a real artwork of piled luggage on the one card we had. Benet pushed, I secured, and this way we circled around the next half hour through the chaotic hall and asked our way to the right terminal. A gentleman sent us to the arrival hall. This can never be right. I'm not arriving, I'm leaving, I grumbled, but it actually turned out to be correct. Well, in Salvador, you'll find everything a little different. I paid Benet, we parted, and I was alone. My nerves were strained again when the bus driver was looking at my passport. I just hoped that he had no silly ideas and looked for the missing visa stamp. Lena, a young woman from Säo Paulo, was about the only nice passenger on the bus. During the breaks we got to talking, but never too long because the bus driver rushed to proceed. We didn't even have time to shower. At the end of the trip I was very glad to have met Lena. At the latest, when the driver informed us after the last break at midnight to Sunday that we would arrive as early as about 2 o'clock in the morning at the bus station of Säo Paulo instead of 6 o'clock in the morning. The both of us were anything but enthusiastic. What should I do until 6 o'clock in the morning in the bus station? Only then I would be picked up. My phone was neither charged nor did I have a SIM card for Säo Paulo. Lena offered me to call Moraes with her cell phone. However, his phone was switched off. We agreed that she would try it again when we arrived in the central. I was still not too worried and slept a little because I was really tired. Lena woke me. We have almost arrived. Should I try again to call? The phone was still switched off, but it wasn't surprising. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and whoever wants to sleep in peace switches off his cell phone. I asked Lena to call Julia because it was planned that Julia would pick me up along with Moraes. We were lucky with her, but Julia didn't think it being very funny at all to be disturbed in her sleep at this time. When are you arriving? By 2 o'clock this afternoon? She asked sleepy, not exactly in high spirits. I've arrived already. Can you please call Moraes? I will not do that. Wait for me somewhere near the exit where I can park the car. Great, Julia. Where should be somewhere near the exit? The batteries of Lena's 2 mobile phones were so empty that she could neither receive calls nor call anywhere. The 2 of us stood pretty clueless and lost with the carts, full of our stuff, and mine was much more extensive than hers. In this huge bus station hall of Säo Paulo, Lena didn't have an idea how she should come home at this time, but I promised her to talk to Julia. First, we tried to come out of this basement with our carts, an almost impossible task. The steep stairs we could not climb with the carts, and to leave parts of our luggage downstairs to carry some up was also impossible. Finally, I not only had normal luggage, but, in addition to half of my household, a TV and DVD device in its original carton. For these figures creeping around here a welcome prey. Lena left me with the 2 carts to go upstairs and look for a chance to recharge her cell phones while I was looking for a place to smoke a cigarette. This, however, I could forget throughout the entire complex. Even outside in the taxi lane I was not allowed to smoke. I also needed to go to the toilet urgently, but those were closed this time of the morning. Lena came back and gave me one of her phones. At once, it's Julia. In short words and with a strange mobile phone number, Julia gave me the instruction, get out from down there at once. The security people told me that it's very dangerous and don't want to let me come down there. Come up, we meet at the baggage storage. Nothing rather than that. If I only knew how. Taxi drivers refused to bring us up with our luggage, and these weird characters hanging around here asked 27 reais to carry our things up. I was not willing to pay that. Besides, I doubted if I would ever again see my luggage when I confided it to one of those guys. Tired and irritated, I was fighting loudly with those taxi drivers and called all standing around bandits, criminals. Then one taxi driver provoked me with his remark, if you don't like it here, then go back where you came from, and called me additionally a stupid foreigner. I saw red and swore at him to be a racist. Lena tried to stop me. The taxi drivers called for security forces, but finally she managed to pull me away from there. My luck, because during this incident I had completely forgotten that I was on the best way to drop me into real trouble. Once again, she left me with the 2 carts to come back a little later and told me happily that she found a lift. My anger boiled up again. These bandits know that there is a lift. Logically, there must be one. How else is there a way out of here? As precaution, she began to pull about on me again in the direction of the lift. We waited until it came down. The door opened and a lady denied us access. Not with these carts. This is not a baggage lift. Panic was rising inside me. Claustrophobia. I just wanted to get out. Lena's cell phones were becoming flat again. To make matters worse, her husband called and wanted her to come home because the metro was already running by this time. She alone could easily climb up the stairs with her 2 small suitcases. It was me who was caught down here. Lena was only still here because of me. She didn't want to leave me alone. Julia was somewhere upstairs waiting for me without me having the opportunity to come up with my luggage. Now I cursed the television. No, to call her. With Lena's phone, I called Pedro now and asked him to tell Julia that I had a problem. Pedro, who was anything but happy that I had disturbed his sleep, barked at me he would not call Julia. After Lena's husband phoned the second time, I told her she should go and not worry about me. Undecided, she initially stayed with me. "What will you do?" she asked. "I just want to get out of here. I'm going to take a taxi to bring me for 10 reais to the next corner, and then I'll wait there until anyone picks me up. Important is to get out of here." She made one last suggestion. "I watch the card and you go up and search for your friend." Almost reluctantly, I climbed up those many stairs, noted that it was here much more ghostly as below. In contrast to the basement, not even security guards were here to be watching that nobody smoked. Except from junkies and crackheads, nobody was here. God knows, I'm not scared, but my common sense told me that I was in mortal danger here in order to find the baggage room, and Lena alone with our 2 cards was also in danger. Resigned, I climbed the stairs back down again. I am sure that Julia has long since gone back home. It's almost 4 o'clock. Sure, she doesn't wait for hours until I make it upstairs. I want to get out. Outside on the street it is less dangerous than in here. We said goodbye. I promised to get in touch with her, and then was alone with the 2 full cards. Now, more than ever, stubbornly I pushed and exchanged one card then the other forward, naturally progressed in small pace, glad angrily at all the dark figures who probably had already decided not dare to approach me. At the booth for taxi bookings, which was now occupied, I asked the prices and realized that if I decided to take a taxi to my new address or Julia's, it wouldn't be less than 150 reais. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me calling, "Rita!" When I turned around, I saw my petite friend in the company of 2 government security officials, who refused to let her come down here alone. In relief, the tears were rolling down my face when I fell around Julia's neck. Julia looked at the mess and now understood the situation. The security officials organized an official carrier for 17 reais, who not only transported the luggage safe, but also straight into Julia's car. During the trip, we talked about my project, and I could actually convince Julia, who was very skeptical. Due to talking, I was so distracted that I only realized where we were when we parked in front of Julia's house. I looked questioningly at her. "Do you prefer that I take you to your address?" "It is not far from here. I can go there." After brief reflection, I shook my head. It was shortly before 5 o'clock in the morning. Moraes had no idea that I was since hours already in Säo Paulo. I didn't know how we lived, if I had to wake up our landlady to get into the house. After all, I had no key yet. Nothing I knew actually. Why was Moraes' cell phone switched off? I ended up back in the room, which was too familiar. "Sleep a few hours, then we'll see," said Julia, and was gone already in her bedroom. In fact, I slept immediately for a while, however, was awake again by 6:30, worrying that maybe now Moraes would be at the bus station, waiting in vain for me. After several attempts where I discovered that his phone was still switched off, it struck me that I indeed had the number of my new landlady and called it from the telephone next to Julia's bed. Donna Vera was initially somewhat confused and asked why I had arrived today already, since it was Saturday. I started to doubt myself. She also explained to me that Moraes didn't have the charger of his cell phone with him and therefore the phone was not working. After having him out of bed, nothing of waiting at the station, and on the phone, he then asked me also why I was already in Säo Paulo. I definitely thought it was me who was stupid, until Julia, pretty pissed off with the entire crazy situation, jumping out of her bed, assured me that it was Sunday and not Saturday. While waiting for Julia to get herself ready, I secretly wondered if Moraes would correspond to my ideas, at least in some ways. After circling around in the area, we finally found and stopped in front of the pretty house of Donna Vera, who was waiting there with a man beside her, of whom I hoped that it was not Moraes.